What's up, guys? It's the Pre-Boy Offense. My name's Saj, and we are doing the love and hate list this week. So, top 3 games I love to bet on for Survivor, and top 3 games I do not want to touch for Survivor. And now that we're like a quarter of the way in the season, I'll start doing little asterisks by certain teams that I've already picked in like my Survivor pool, and like give you an extra one, whether it's a love or hate, with regards to the lineup. So if you're picking along with me or you want to know like how I'm doing, then I'll also give you just enough information to go off of for yourself as well. So just off the top, this was like a really interesting week because this is kind of where the games start to get a little tougher to pull, right? We're seeing more games where teams are a lot closer in competition level, and then now we have to start breaking down like health of teams and stuff like that. So it's really important that we stay on top of just injuries and things like that. Usually, if you play like fantasy football, you already know about certain injuries because you're like monitoring waiver wire situations and stuff like that, who to pick up. So I think that's the best way to stay on top of injuries without putting any more, you know, extraneous like research on your plate. And I'll do my best to cover injuries when I can. The weekend recaps. I know those videos are already getting long too, so I don't want to take away too much of people's times with that. I try to make a quick couple points about each team and then move on. But yeah, I'll make sure I touch on that stuff a little more in depth with this video, where we're actually going to go a little more in depth about the certain games and why we're staying away from them. Okay, so we'll start with the games that I love. Games I love: Cowboys versus Giants. I keep talking about this good team versus bad team. We always want to take the good team in this situation, and that team is the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are firing on all cylinders. They're healthy, which the Cowboys haven't been in a while. Despite that loss at the beginning of the season, they've been playing great. Their offense is clicking. Their defense is being opportunistic. They're still letting points, but the good thing is that it's not discouraging them from playing the way they are. Like, they're going to get interceptions. They're going to get some sacks, I think. They released Jalen Smith, which I think was an incredible move and a very mature move by the front office for Dallas, just because they have so many like surplus linebackers that are NFL quality already on that roster. We talk about the first round pick they had on Micah Parsons. They got Jabril Cox. They signed Keanu Neal. Leighton Vander Esch is still there. It's nice to know that they've analyzed who's succeeding in the system, even though Jalen Smith played okay. Contract-wise and stuff like that, you have to start thinking about the future, especially when you've signed Zeke, you've signed Dak and stuff like that. So moving on from Jalen Smith, I really like to see it shows that this team has so much foresight, and they're not going to let a team like the Giants beat them. The Giants are starting to find their edge right now, but they're still missing some receivers. And I talked about how Daniel Jones is receiver-proof because he's doing so much of the work himself. But against a team like the Cowboys, you kind of need more than just a quarterback that can put up points when you're going up against an offense like Dallas that is going to just, do what they did last year and do what they've done at the beginning of this year and stuff, which is score lots of points, right? And that's on the ground and in the air. So I just think even if the Giants do score points, it's not going to be enough. That's why I'm confident in taking the Cowboys. This does have the caveat of being an in-division game, though. So whenever you have in-division games, teams that you play twice a year, every year, there's just a little bit more familiarity there. There's always room for upsets, and like I kind of mentioned that with the Rams Seahawks earlier, like in the other video, there's always going to be room for upsets with these types of matchups, with like these rivalries. But I think you're safe here with the Cowboys. They look head and shoulders above anything in the NFC East. So yeah, I like the Cowboys as my number one love pick this week. After that, Patriots-Texans. This is a situation of, like we said, bad team, good team. The Patriots may not be the best team in the league, but they're good enough. They're competent. They're coached by Bill Belichick. Mac Jones is probably the best rookie QB right now. He's not flashy. He's not exciting, but he makes completions. He gets the ball down the field, and they score some points, albeit kicks and stuff, but it's enough, and it's more than what the Texans can do. And the Texans, they just released Anthony Miller, who they even spent like real draft capital on, like a 5th-round pick and stuff. So I guess, just going to live and die by the running back committee that they have. And like I said, until Tyrod Taylor comes back, Davis Mills could be a backup quarterback in the future, but right now he's too inexperienced and he can't really keep up with a mature team like the Patriots outside their cornerback. Everybody on that team is a NFL vet, knows what to do, and with a coach like Belichick, they won't lose to a team like the Texans. So the third game that I love is Panthers over Eagles. Yes, I think the Panthers are overhyped from what they did this earlier in the season, and they kind of came back down to earth with that Cowboys loss. But they're still a good team. And the Eagles are a worse team than them, and they're exciting a bit. They're relevant enough with Jalen Hurts, but I don't think it's enough to actually beat the Panthers. Uh, it'll probably be like close in the first half, but then you'll just see the Panthers pull away. I think the Christian McCaffrey injury is not hampering the Panthers. It's just taking away a bit more dimension from that team. But Chuba Hubbard is filling in well enough, and Sam Darnold has shown that he can make his plays with his legs too. So they're not completely lost on that front. Their running game is fine, and Sam Darnold has his eyes glued to DJ Moore. And as long as DJ Moore's playing, they're going to be exploiting defenses because he's a great receiver in this league. So Panthers over Eagles. So now I have a fourth pick because we already have picked the Patriots in my survivor pool. So if you guys are following around with me and want to start deviating now, this is another game. Bucks versus Dolphins. I know we said we want to save these really awesome, like strong powerhouse teams to the end of the season. But in a week like this, where you're still kind of on the fence about certain games, like don't be scared to take your slam dunks. It's always better to take a dunk and then just like next week try and figure out the games that you can maybe sneak out and get out the week with. But I think this is like a sneaky week. I think a lot of games can flip-flop between who's winning, who's losing, and you'll see that in some of the games that it's highlighted in the hate game. So don't be scared. I think, Bucks over Dolphins, the Packers game even could be good. I don't think the Bengals are as good as their record shows right now, and I think that when they play a good team like the Packers that they will be exploited. But yeah, Bucks Dolphins, don't be scared. I think that's as good as it gets, especially with Tua still out. All right, so the games I hate. Saints, Washington, I kind of outlined this with every video. Washington's defense just isn't good enough. All year they haven't played good enough. Their secondary's been terrible. Their D-line has the talent, but it just hasn't produced yet. They've been trying so hard. I can literally see the steam coming off them when they're running. And then the Saints just have an identity issue with Sean Payton and Jameis Winston figuring out what they want to do with them. Do you want to dink and duck and let this be a run team? Or do you want to just air it out and do what you did when you beat the Packers? It's kind of tough. And I understand Sean Payton's hesitancies to really kind of let this offense unload, but I think it's better to die by the sword than to just keep it hidden. The NFL is war and you have to be ready to fight, and he's just showing that he's kind of going belly up in some of these games where he's not committing to what his quarterback is capable of doing. Yeah, there's going to be some negatives, but with him as your quarterback, with your team being the way it is, you have to score points, because if you let teams stick around, they're going to beat you like the Giants did, right? And so the problem I have with this game is it's waiting for more answers, and I think both these teams have so many question marks. Are Sean Payton and Jameis Winston going to figure this out, the play calling out? Is Washington's defense going to figure out their pass rushing and stuff like that? Which one of these is going to return back to what we expected them to be? And is it going to be in this game? And if it is, which one hits harder? And who ends up winning, right? It's just so many variables. This could go either way for me, and those are the types of things, as much as I'd love to snake a week using the Saints, or as much as I'd like to snake a week using Washington, it just seems like it's a little too close for me. We kind of highlighted that type of stuff last week with some other teams. So, the Giants-Saints game was just it just kind of looks like one where you're waiting. You don't know what these teams are yet because they refuse to embrace an identity, and they're just so nonchalant, so pedestrian that they, fall by the wayside, and that screws us because we aren't comfortable taking them. Consistency is comfort is essentially my motto. And then speaking on that, the next game I hate, Titans versus Jaguars, is just the most underperforming team in the league right now, with the Titans kind of expected with Arthur Smith losing, or bringing in an injured receiver, an often injured receiver, be just their offensive line slowly and getting worse and worse over the last few years. And then you're going up against the Jags, who have had the worst probably week of any NFL team I've seen in a while, publicity wise. It's just who sucks less wins this game right now. And honestly, it's just so hard to pull. Every day I flip-flop between Titans or Jags, and I could see the Titans just being a team that just gets kicked in the teeth twice, last week with the Jets and then this week with the Jags. You'd imagine that they're at least good enough to beat the Jags, but I mean, you played for a tie against the Jets. That was some weak play calling, that was scared stuff, and I know you didn't have A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, but that's no excuse. You've got to be better. You're an NFL team. Depth is key. You know your roster. You knew that was going to be an issue with A.J. Brown having off-season surgery. You knew what Julio Jones was before you brought him in. Like, this wasn't a surprise. This was definitely a week that was almost expected by a lot of people in the NFL, and you weren't able to beat the Jets. So I just want to stay away from that game. There's a lot of bad football there. And then my last game, Bears-Raiders. Again, I kind of talked about the Raiders, how like I was pumping Derek Carr's tires. He's awesome. He was playing great, but I was just like, we've seen this before with Derek Carr. Is he going to come back down to earth? And it looks like he did against the Chargers. Now, the Chargers offense is much better than the Bears offense, but I think the Bears defense and the Chargers defense are fairly comparable. And if what Bosa said about Derek Carr, him like curling up before the sacks and stuff were even there, and we saw that, if this pass rush for the Bears can get to Derek Carr, this might just be another game where they only score like 14 points, right? 13 points or whatever, which would suck, because I think the Raiders were playing great, and I think people want the Raiders to be good, especially with the whole Vegas stadium and just them being like a cornerstone of the NFL. But it looks they're coming back down to earth. The running backs aren't playing that great, which sucks. I love Josh Jacobs too. He's a talent. Darren Waller, he's like a great guy too. It's nice to see him succeed, but just as a team, I don't know. It just kind of looks like the league caught up to them, and they played great those first 3 games, but they're kind of coming back down to earth. And on the Bears side, they fully committed to Justin Fields. They had a running back injury, so I don't think Montgomery's out this week and maybe the next couple, but they have Williams, so they're not going to lose too much. He's a totally competent running back, and with Justin Fields getting a whole week of practice, and with Bill Lazor making the calls, I think this is going to be a comfortable play call for him. Max Crosby is wrecking house right now with the Raiders, and I think a lot of their game planning is going to be geared towards, okay, this is how you're going to be comfortable when this guy's coming at you. We're going to give you your outs. We're going to give you your checkdowns and stuff. Take them. Be safe. And then also his legs. He can exploit so much with his feet. So, yeah, I can see the Bears just being the Raiders. But then again, Nagy's been a bit of a head case. Even in like the interviews, you hear him like not fully committing to like getting over play calling duty and stuff like that. So maybe he just tries to big brain himself back into good favor by then wanting to make calls himself. So it's always tough trying to read headlines like that and then project it for a survivor pick. So whenever things like that come up, whenever there's a lot of storylines like this coming up, I usually stay away from that game. So Bears Raiders, don't want to touch it. Would love to see the Bears come out of this, show that they're a confident team and they become bettable in the future. Or even the Raiders. Maybe the Raiders show that Chargers game was a hiccup and they come out of this. I'll be more confident with the Raiders, right? And I could take the Raiders later. But yeah, guys, 3 love games, 3 hate games. Bet them with whichever way you want, but just a little bit more information kind of. I know people don't have time to watch a 15-minute video with me barely touching these games. But yeah, hopefully this helps you. Best of luck this week with your picks. Another sneaky one was Vikings-Lions. I heard some people talking about that one. I just kind of want to wait a bit more on the Vikings, see how they go. They've been in every game. They're kind of like the opposite of the Lions being in games, but then they're like getting some wins, but they're way more competent than the Lions. I do like the Vikings because I think Kirk Cousins is playing great, similar to Derek Carr. But one more week, let them just beat the Lions, and then we can be a little bit more sure of them moving forward. So yeah, have a good one, guys. Best of luck with your picks.